Is Alabasta really overrated? For this discussion, I'll be taking a look at this question and other hot takes in the One Piece community. The way this works is I'm going to take the hot takes you guys gave me on Twitter and give you my take on the matter. For the most part, unlike my other videos, this will be almost entirely unscripted. This way, I can give you the genuine takes on One Piece and its community that I wouldn't normally dedicate an entire video to discussing. Before we get started, make sure to comment with some of your hot takes. I'll pick my favorite and share it as comment of the week in the next video. This week's comment comes from Johnny Masterson for reminding us to strike a proper balance between science and survival. And since I'd like this to become a regular thing, I'm gonna make you guys a deal. If we can get 25 likes for the video in the first week, I'll make part 2 where you guys can give me even more hot takes to address. And don't forget, we're still in the 1,000 subscriber challenge. So to help reach both those goals, remember to like the video, comment with some hot takes, share the video as much as you can, and subscribe for weekly One Piece and Dr. Stone videos. But with that out of the way, let's go ahead and look at Twitter. Now, just to be clear, like I said, this is unscripted. I did not prepare any notes. I have seen these ahead of time because I obviously needed to screen these, make sure they were all good for the video, but no notes, no script, I'm just giving you my thoughts off the top of my head. So to start, we have Emerald, who said, "Personally, I thought Alabasta wasn't very good. I admit it has positive elements to it, but when you have multiple fake-out deaths, and a main villain who has one of the worst Achilles heels ever, with also a general underutilization of the cast, I found it lacking." Okay, so I don't think this is such a bad take. Emerald does make a couple of good points, but for the most part, I disagree with this. The one I agree with most is the one about the fake-out deaths. Now, I'm not sure who you have in mind specifically, but when I think of this in the context of Alabasta, I immediately think of Pell. And it is a problem because it was a pretty big sacrifice on the part of Pell just for him to come back, and that is a problem in One Piece. Anyone will tell you that it's probably like the biggest flaw with One Piece, that Oda just has this thing where he likes to pretend that a character died and then, haha, just kidding. And it's like, yeah, it makes the story more fun because then you get to see the character stick around, but it's also like, okay, so they made this big grand sacrifice and now they're just here, so what do we do with them? Everything else, though, I disagree with. I disagree with the Achilles heel thing because I don't think it's that bad. I disagree with the underutilization part completely. I think Alabasta, if anything, is one of the best examples of Oda giving the characters active roles, even with characters like Usopp and Chopper. It's just what makes it personally my #1 favorite arc, and saga. Now we have Johnny saying, "Skypiea in the anime was so hard to watch, I dropped the show. About a month later, I went to reading the manga." Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you. Funny enough, I think most people drop it at Dressrosa for the same reason. Filler is obviously one of the biggest weaknesses of the One Piece anime, but fortunately that's not really the case with Wano right now. After that, we have Tokyotron, who said Fishman Island was really boring, but thematically excellent. Again, another take, totally respect it. I wouldn't necessarily agree with the boring part. The fights are pretty low stake, but for the most part they're, they are what they are. But I appreciate you giving respect where respect is due. Thematically, this is a great arc. It adds on to all the themes of racism and slavery and discrimination. Next we have Mamsie, who gave us 3, so I'm just gonna rattle them off, give you my quick answers. Lucci vs. Luffy is the best fight in the series. I'll give that to you. Arguably, the Katakuri fight is better, but that's a discussion for another day. The anime is great and not as bad as many people make it out to be. I would say the anime is fairly rated. Again, filler is a big problem, although One Piece filler is actually better than most filler in anime. Aside from filler, there's just general pacing and animation issues, although again, Wano is definitely working to fix that. And then finally, he says Vivi is best girl, which 100% agree. Great character, great design, and like I said earlier, Alabasta is one of my favorite arcs. That's Vivi's arc, so there we go. Everything about it, I love it. Now we have Poxel, who said East Blue is a 9.3 out of 10, and Alabasta is a 7.5 out of 10. And that's just cap. I mean, Poxel, I love you. You're a smart dude, but everything you just said, 100% cap. In fact, if I put Captain America and Captain Knuckles in the same room, eating Captain Crunch, in bowls filled with Captain Morgan, there still wouldn't be enough cap in that room to match the cap that you just gave me. Like, at least Emerald gave credit where credit was due. I don't even know how you get a 9.3. That's not a 9.5. That's not a half a point. That's 3/10 of a point. Where did you get 3/10 of a point? My friend, I need to see like whatever grading criteria you came up with, because that is whack. But let me wrap this up. Let me give you my verdict. I think you failed me. I think you failed yourself. And to be quite frank, you failed Jesus. But next up, we have another threefer from Zodek Smith, so I'm just going to quickly rattle these off. When do you think Act 3 will end? Probably soon, considering we've been in Act 3 for a while, I'm pretty sure, so it's gotta end soon. Do you think anyone of significance will die during the war? If I had to guess, I'd say the Scabbards. It could be nobody, it could be a ton of people, but I feel like the Scabbards are just our best bet. Finally, will Kaido one-shot Luffy again and the other allies? Luffy, no, because I feel like that would be self-defeating. I feel like it would be a gigantic waste of time. I know some people really want Wano to end with Luffy losing again, but I just don't see that happening. As far as his allies, yes, I could definitely see that happening. Next, we have A&M Anime, who wants to know about skipped fights. I don't know, you kind of just put skipped fights. Like, I don't know what you want me to say. I'm not really sure what to say other than they're okay. I mean, I don't love them, but I don't hate them. I also don't think it's a huge problem. Off the top of my head, the only real problem is the Kiku and Kanjuro fight, because there was a lot of build-up for that, and we just didn't get to see it. Next, Furoki wants to know One Piece character designs. Overrated or underrated? I would 100%, no, 10 billion% say that One Piece designs are underrated. It is such a popular meme to point out the proportions and all that and say, oh, Oda doesn't know how to draw. Also, those memes are trash because they picked like the worst examples from the anime. But it is very deliberate from Oda. He even said in one of his art books, I believe it was, he said, I used to draw the more photorealistic pictures, but nobody was really into that. So that's why I think he made the switch to the more cartoonish style. And because of that, we have the art style we see now, obviously iconic and also just aesthetically pleasing. I don't care what anyone else says. Next, we have False Mind with a very interesting take. He says, Sanji has always been mid, this isn't a new thing. And I half agree with this. I agree with the fact that Sanji isn't really doing anything new in Wano. By the way, you might want to skip to this point in the video if you don't want Wano spoilers. Sorry about that. But yeah, there's nothing new going on with Sanji's character. Sanji is always a very emotional character, and it's always this blend of like, I'm like half thinking of what I'm doing, but also I'm kind of just going with my gut. We saw this with all the Mr. Prince stuff in Alabasta, we saw this in Eni's Lobby, and we're seeing it again in Onigashima with Robin. And let me just say that anyone who says Sanji is a strategist is just not paying attention to his character. Like the fact that he had a choice between going upstairs and downstairs and just went, downstairs, basically proves that he doesn't really plan things out 100% of the time. But the part about Sanji being a mid character, that's cap. Sanji is not a mid character, he's a great character, he's always been a great character, and quite frankly, you need to chill with that one. Next, we have Axel Ablaze, who says, might be a weird take, but if it wasn't for 4Kids, I think we wouldn't have seen One Piece reach Western audiences until years later, given the goofy nature of its earlier episodes. So for this, I'm just going to come right out and say it, I just don't know enough about this. I know that the 4Kids dub obviously had a messy run. Also, as far as I understand the situation, at that time, the manga was much more popular than the anime. So maybe it is the case that this is true, but unfortunately, I don't know nearly enough to give you a proper answer. After that, we have Geek Ire, who says Buggy the Clown is an underrated villain. He also said something about him being the only Shonen Jump villain to survive this long, and how he's basically stronger than Frieza. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I think if you do the math, Dio lasted longer than Frieza and Buggy combined. But as far as that first part, I don't think he's underrated. I think Buggy D. Clown is definitely a god, and I don't think anyone in the One Piece community would disagree with that. But next we have Gin, who says, Ace's death was largely underwhelming. Whitebeard was more impactful. And while I can see where Gin is coming from, I have to disagree with this completely. I said something in my What Wano is Missing video about how this sort of thing is subjective but can be approached objectively, but in this case it really is a matter of personal preference. Because one person might read this and go, okay, that was stupid, he could have just run away. Or one person might say, okay, I saw it coming, so I just didn't really like it that much. If you were like me at the time and you were going through some pretty dark times, you might watch this and go, oh my god, this is exactly what I'm going through. Like, this is somebody who doesn't even know if they should have been born. So while it is open to reasonable dispute, I really do think it comes down to personal preference. But as far as the Whitebeard death being better than the Ace death, I would probably have to disagree with you on that one. I think the Ace death is a lot more sentimental, and the Whitebeard death is really epic, but I don't think it's nearly as emotional. Next, Studio Alex says, I strongly believe Emu will not be physically strong. This kind of depends on how you define physically, because one person might define physically as being able to lift something over their head. When I personally think of the word physically, I think literally just any physical ability, including devil fruits, hockey, anything like that. So to address your take, I can't really disagree with you just because I have no idea what to expect from Emu, but I definitely think he's going to have some kind of ability, whether it be a devil fruit or hockey or even some kind of fortune telling. The next one comes from Kitsune Katie, aka everyone's favorite VTuber. She says, I strongly dislike Boa Hancock, and no matter how cruel her background is, I don't think it justifies her actions. Now look, if this was maybe a year ago, I would be outraged that anyone even think of disrespecting Boa Hancock. But now I'm sort of just like, I get it. To be clear, I think Boa is still a great character. She's a proud woman, a great fighter, stands up for what she believes in, and by the way, is great with accessories. Not nearly enough people talk about that. But in all seriousness, she is a brat. She acts like she's better than everyone else. She looks down at people so much that she's actually looking up, and she literally goes out of her way, not like happens to, goes out of her way to kick dogs and kittens. Of course, she has gotten a lot better than when we first met her, but the truth is that this is still, for better or worse, a part of Boa's character. So do I think she's justified in doing these things? No, of course not. But do I think it makes her irredeemable as a character? No, I still think she is a great character. But moving on, Trevor Tiger says Douglas Bullet is the worst One Piece character that has ever been conceived. And this is just plain fraudulent. Like, Poxel's take was bad, but at least he honestly believes what he says. How could you honestly believe, how could you say in good faith that Douglas Bullet is the worst character? The worst. I just don't buy it. Like, there are so many characters that are way worse than Douglas Bullet. The Batman that works for Kaido is a worse character than Douglas Bullet. Talk about ass pulls, somehow this guy has Yonko level hockey. And even if we just keep it in the realm of movies, there are other characters worse than Bullet. Like, are you seriously going to tell me Tesoro is a better character than Bullet? Trevor Tiger, you are totally entitled to your opinion, but your opinion is so wrong it constitutes fraud. So all I have to say is, you better get a lawyer, cause I'll see you in court. And that's it for the hot takes. Thank you to everyone who submitted a take for the video. Remember, 25 likes in the first week and I'll make part 2. Comment below with some more One Piece hot takes, and don't forget to subscribe for weekly One Piece and Dr. Stone videos. Thank you for watching, and I hope to hear from you soon.